I was standing in my kitchen when my world tilted sideways. The coffee mug felt warm in my hands as I scrolled through my phone, half awake, expecting nothing more than the usual morning posts. Then I saw it. My brother Tyler's engagement announcement had transformed into a full wedding post. Save the date, June 12th. The photo showed everyone. Mom, Dad, my sister Emma, cousins I barely talked to, even Aunt Patricia who lived 3 states away. They were all tagged, all smiling, all included. My name wasn't there. I read through the comments twice, then 3 times, searching for some mistake. My hands started shaking. The mug slipped from my fingers and shattered on the tile floor, coffee spreading like dark water across the white surface. My phone buzzed with the family group chat lighting up. Can't wait. So beautiful. June will be perfect. None of the messages were directed at me. Nobody even noticed I wasn't tagged. I stood there in the spreading puddle of coffee, feeling like I was disappearing. I called Mom first. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I tried Dad next. 4 rings, then voicemail. My fingers were trembling as I pulled up Tyler's number. Ring, ring, ring. Finally, he picked up. Tyler, I just saw your post. I wasn't tagged and I need to know if... Aaron. His voice was flat, careful. You weren't supposed to find out like this. The words hit me like a physical blow. Find out what? I whispered. There was a long pause. I could hear voices in the background, someone laughing. We can talk about this later, he said. Tyler, am I invited to your wedding? Another pause that felt like a lifetime. It's complicated. Then he hung up. I stared at my phone screen until it went black, my reflection ghostly in the dark glass. The silence in my apartment was deafening. My name is Aaron Hall. I'm 28 years old. And until this morning, I thought I knew who I was. I teach 2nd grade at Riverside Elementary in our small Pennsylvania town. I'm the middle child. The one who always kept the peace. The one everyone called when they needed something fixed or smoothed over. When Mom and Dad fought about money, I was the mediator. When Emma dropped out of college, I helped her find her path. When Tyler struggled with his business loans, I co-signed because family helps family. That's what I believed. I wasn't the loud one or the glamorous one. I was steady, reliable, present. I showed up for every birthday, every holiday, every crisis. I thought that mattered. I thought being there meant something. Looking at that wedding post, at all those faces that didn't include mine, I realized something terrible. You can be present your whole life and still be invisible. The seeds of this betrayal were planted 2 Thanksgivings ago. I could see it now, looking back with new clarity. We were all gathered at Mom and Dad's house. The table stretched long with too much food and forced conversation. Tyler had just started dating Lauren, and she was trying too hard to fit in. She'd had 3 glasses of wine when she turned to me with that smile people wear when they're about to say something mean disguised as concern. You know, Aaron, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe you'd find someone if you just lowered your standards a bit. Not everyone can be perfect. The table went quiet. Mom's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Emma looked down at her plate. I felt my face get hot. My standards are fine, Lauren, I said evenly. I'm just waiting for someone who doesn't need 3 glasses of wine to build up courage for basic conversation. Her face went bright red. Tyler glared at me. Mom cleared her throat in that way that meant I'd crossed the line. But I hadn't started it. I'd just finished it. That night, I saw Mom give Tyler a look that said everything. Your sister should have stayed quiet. I should have known then that defending myself would cost me. After Tyler hung up on me, I did something I'd never done before. I went through the family group chat with suspicious eyes. I scrolled back through 2 months of messages, reading between the lines of conversations I'd thought were innocent. Can't wait for spring. Now I understood. Wedding planning. The flowers are going to be beautiful. Not generic chat, venue discussions. So excited for June. Not summer excitement. The wedding I wasn't invited to. There were inside jokes I hadn't understood, emoji reactions that made sense now. Little threads of exclusion woven through weeks of messages. They'd been planning this whole time, talking around me, coding their excitement so I wouldn't catch on. Every heart emoji felt like a tiny knife. Every can't wait to celebrate was a celebration I was deliberately excluded from. They hadn't forgotten me. That would have been easier to accept. They had actively worked to keep me in the dark. The planning, the conversations, the joy. All of it happened while I was right there in the chat, completely blind to my own erasure. Mom finally called me back 3 hours later. I was sitting on my couch, still in my pajamas, staring at nothing. "Honey," she started, and I could hear the practiced tone in her voice. She'd rehearsed this. "We need to talk about Tyler's wedding." Why wasn't I invited? My voice came out steadier than I felt. She sighed long and heavy, like I was the one being difficult. "It's not that simple, Aaron. Lauren's family is very traditional, and after what happened at Thanksgiving, she's been uncomfortable around you. Tyler asked us to keep things small and stress-free." Small? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I counted 40 people tagged in that post." "Well, yes, but I'm not family enough to make the cut?" Silence. Then softly, almost gently, "You can always send a gift if you'd like to participate that way." Something inside me shattered. They wanted my money but not my presence. They wanted me erased but still giving. "I have to go," I whispered. "Aaron, don't be dramatic." I hung up while she was still talking. I didn't go to work for 3 days. I called in sick, which wasn't entirely a lie. I felt sick to my stomach, sick with grief and anger and disbelief. My principal, Mrs. Chun, no Mrs. Burke, was understanding. "Take the time you need," she said, and I was grateful she didn't ask questions. My phone kept buzzing with messages. Emma finally texted, "I'm sorry. I voted against this but got overruled." Like it was a democracy, voting on whether I existed. Dad sent, "Let's talk when everyone calms down." As if I was the one who needed to calm down. Aunt Patricia called and left a rambling voicemail about how family is complicated, and I should try to understand. Understand what? That I was disposable? I spent those 3 days in my apartment, imagining them all together. Shopping for bridesmaid dresses without me. Tasting cake flavors I'd never try. Picking flowers I wouldn't see. Laughing at inside jokes about the sister they'd left behind. The betrayal wasn't just the exclusion. It was the continuation of their lives without me. As if I'd never mattered at all. On the 3rd night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed scrolling mindlessly through venue websites, torturing myself by imagining what Tyler's wedding would look like. That's when I found it. Maplewood Estate. The name made my breath catch. I clicked through their photo gallery. The sprawling oak trees, the glass ballroom overlooking the lake, the stone pathways winding through gardens. I knew this place. I'd worked here during graduate school, part-time on weekends, setting up events and coordinating with vendors. I'd spent 2 years walking those pathways, arranging those chairs, watching other people celebrate their most important moments. My hands were shaking as I clicked on their booking calendar. I scrolled to June. June 12th appeared on the screen. Ballroom A, reserved for Tyler Hall and Lauren Pierce wedding reception. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I saw it. Ballroom B, available. My cursor hovered over the Inquire Now button. My heart was racing. I didn't know what I was planning yet, but something deep inside me clicked into place like a lock turning. I sat there in the blue light of my laptop screen for 20 minutes. My finger trembled over the trackpad. This was crazy. This was petty. This was wrong. But was it? They'd excluded me from the most important day of my brother's life. They'd erased me from family photos that would hang on walls for generations. They'd made me invisible. Wasn't I allowed to be seen? I thought about all the times I'd made myself smaller for them. The birthday parties I'd planned alone. The times I'd bitten my tongue when Lauren made snide comments. The family events where I smiled through hurt feelings, because keeping peace was more important than keeping dignity. What had that gotten me? A wedding invitation list with everyone's name but mine. My hand moved almost on its own. I clicked the button. A form appeared. Event type: Corporate Appreciation Dinner. Date: June 12th. Time: same as the wedding. Venue: Ballroom B. I filled in every blank with steady fingers. When I hit submit, something inside me settled. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. The next morning, Maplewood's event coordinator called me back. "Miss Hall, it's so nice to hear from you. I remember when you worked here." Her voice was warm, familiar. "We have ballroom be available on June 12th. Is this for a company event?" "Yes," I lied smoothly. "An appreciation dinner for colleagues and mentors. About 50 people." We discussed details. She didn't ask questions. Why would she? I'd worked there for 2 years. I knew exactly what forms needed signatures, what deposits had to be paid, what details to provide and which to leave vague. I used my own money, my savings account that I'd been building for years. "Will you need catering?" she asked. "Yes. Can you recommend someone?" She gave me 3 names. The second one made me smile. Cornerstone Catering. They're doing another event here that day actually, so it might be convenient. Tyler's Caterer. The same people who'd be serving his wedding cake would be preparing my dinner. The poetry of it wasn't lost on me. I signed the contract that afternoon. The deposit cleared from my account. For the first time in a week, I slept through the night without crying. I started making a list of names. Not family, chosen family. People who'd actually shown up for me over the years. My college roommate Nina, who'd driven 4 hours when I had the flu last year. My teaching partner Marcus, who covered my class when I was falling apart. My mentor from graduate school, Dr. Simmons, who still called me every birthday. My neighbor Mrs. Kowalski, who brought me soup and didn't ask questions. 15, 20, 30 names. People who'd made me feel seen when my own family kept me in the shadows. I wrote them all by hand, bought beautiful cardstock, and designed simple invitations. "You are invited to an evening of appreciation," with the date and elegant script, June 12th. I didn't mention the wedding. I didn't need to. Some of them would figure it out. I addressed each envelope carefully, added personal notes inside. "Thank you for seeing me when others didn't. You've been more family than blood ever was." As I sealed the last envelope, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Powerful. I ran into Dad at the grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon. I was reaching for bread when I heard his voice behind me. "Aaron." I turned. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot, not meeting my eyes. His cart was full of the usual things: beer, frozen dinners, the cookies Mom liked. Normal. As if nothing had changed. "Hi, Dad." We stood there awkwardly. Other shoppers moved around us. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Your mother's upset that you hung up on her." "I'm upset that I wasn't invited to my brother's wedding." He looked down at his shoes. "It's complicated with Lauren's family. You know how these things are." "No, I really don't." He sighed heavily. "Look, you're still welcome to watch from the back if you want. We can set up a chair somewhere discreet." Watch from the back. Like I was a stranger. Like I wasn't his daughter. Something cold and final settled in my chest. "Thanks for the offer, Dad. But I have plans that day." His head snapped up. "What plans?" I smiled, said nothing, and walked away. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I wasn't planning chaos. I want to be clear about that. I didn't want to ruin Tyler's wedding or make Lauren cry, or create some dramatic scene that would end up as family legend. I just wanted to exist. Loudly. Visibly. Undeniably. So I planned carefully. I booked the same florist Maplewood used. They'd be doing both ballrooms anyway. I requested similar but not identical arrangements. Where Tyler had roses, I'd have peonies. Where he had gold, I'd have silver. I found out he'd hired a band and booked their pianist for my event, an hour after the wedding started, so there wouldn't be overlap. Same caterer, different menu time. Same venue, different purpose. I wasn't mirroring them exactly. I was creating a parallel. Close enough that people would notice, different enough that I couldn't be accused of copying. It was subtle. Strategic. The kind of quiet revenge that wouldn't explode but would definitely be felt. Every choice was deliberate. Every detail planned to remind them that I existed, that I mattered, that you couldn't just erase someone without consequences. I felt calmer than I had in weeks. While my family shopped for bridesmaid dresses, I went dress shopping alone. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I tried on maybe 15 dresses before I found it. Deep emerald silk, elegant and simple, with a neckline that was sophisticated without being formal. Not a wedding dress. I wasn't trying to upstage anyone. Not black. I wasn't mourning anything. Emerald green like new growth, like spring, like beginning again. The saleswoman smiled when I stepped out of the dressing room. Special occasion? Very special, I said, looking at myself in the three-way mirror. I looked strong, dignified, unapologetic. I looked like someone who knew her worth. I'll take it. As the saleswoman wrapped it in tissue paper, I caught my reflection again. The woman staring back at me wasn't the people pleaser who'd spent 28 years making herself smaller. This was someone new. Someone they wouldn't forget. Word spreads fast in small towns. By early May, people had started putting pieces together. My event. Same day as Tyler's wedding. Same venue. Whispers started. At the grocery store, at the post office, in the teacher's lounge at school. Aunt Patricia called me one evening, her voice high and anxious. "Erin, honey, I heard you're hosting something on June 12th? Yes, I said simply. At Maplewood? Yes. Long pause. Is this about the wedding? Are you trying to make a statement? I thought about that. I'm trying to remember who I am, I said quietly, and celebrate with people who actually want me there. But the family made their choice, Aunt Patricia. I'm making mine. I hung up gently but firmly. The next day, 3 people who'd RSVP'd yes to Tyler's wedding quietly reached out asking about my event instead. The balance was shifting. Tyler's perfect day was developing cracks before it even began. Lauren called me on a Thursday night. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Erin." Her voice had that fake sweetness that made my skin crawl. "I heard you're planning an event the same day as our wedding." "That's right. At the same venue. Ballroom B is lovely this time of year." Silence. Then ice underneath sugar. "You're not trying to ruin my wedding, are you?" I could have yelled. I could have listed every cruel comment, every exclusion, every time she'd made me feel small. Instead, I stayed calm. "No, Lauren. I'm just celebrating with the people I love most. The people who actually want me in their lives." I heard her sharp intake of breath. Those were her exact words from the wedding announcement. The people I love most. She'd written it in the caption, surrounded by photos that didn't include me. "You can't do this," she hissed. "I already did. Have a beautiful wedding, Lauren." I hung up. My hands weren't shaking at all. The family divided after that. It wasn't dramatic or obvious, but I felt the shift. Emma called me crying. I told them this was wrong from the beginning. "I'm so sorry, Erin. I should have fought harder." "You could still come to my dinner," I offered. "I want to, but Mom said if I skip the wedding, she'll never forgive me." I understood. Emma was younger, still financially dependent on them for some things. "It's okay," I told her and meant it. But others were braver. My cousin Jake canceled his wedding RSVP and asked for an invitation to my event. 2 of Dad's siblings reached out privately, saying they hadn't agreed with the decision to exclude me. Uncle Frank said, "Your father's making a mistake, and one day he'll regret it." 3 more wedding guests quietly switched sides. I didn't ask them to. They chose. Tyler's perfect guest list was bleeding attendees. Mom called me furious. "You're tearing this family apart." "No, Mom," I said tiredly. "You did that when you erased me. I'm just showing people there are other options." The weeks before June 12th passed in a blur of preparation. I threw myself into planning with the same energy I'd once given to keeping family peace. I ordered chair covers and centerpieces. I worked with the caterer on a menu featuring my favorite foods, nothing fancy, just honest and good. I created a playlist of songs that meant something to me. I wrote thank you cards to every guest before they even arrived, explaining what their friendship had meant over the years. Marcus helped me set up a photo board with pictures of genuine moments. Me with Nina at graduation, Dr. Simmons at my thesis defense, Mrs. Kowalski at the community garden we both loved. Real relationships. Real history. As I arranged flowers and folded napkins and tested the sound system, something unexpected happened. I started healing. Each decision I made for myself, Each detail chosen because I liked it rather than because it kept peace. It was like putting pieces of myself back together. The event stopped being about the wedding and became about me remembering my own worth. The night before the wedding, I drove past Maplewood. I told myself I was just checking on setup, but really, I wanted to see them. Tyler's rehearsal was in the courtyard. I parked far enough away to stay hidden, close enough to watch. They looked happy. Tyler in khakis and a button-down, laughing at something. Lauren in a sundress, posing for photos, her hand on his arm. Mom and Dad standing close, proud. Emma adjusting flower arrangements. They looked like a complete family. Like I'd never existed. Like my absence left no hole. I waited for the rage to come, the hurt, the desperate wish to belong again. But sitting there in my car, watching them through the windshield, I felt something else. Distance. Like watching strangers on TV. You erased me, I whispered to the glass. But I rewrote myself. And the strange thing was I meant it. I started the car and drove home, where my dress hung ready in the closet, where my guest list sat on the counter, where my life waited, smaller maybe, but fully mine. June 12th dawned clear and warm, perfect weather for both events. I arrived at Maplewood at 3 o'clock, 2 hours before my dinner started, same time the wedding setup was finishing. I wore jeans and a t-shirt, carrying my dress in a garment bag. Staff members who remembered me from my years working there greeted me warmly. Erin, it's so good to see you back. They helped me into Ballroom B, and I started setting up final touches. Through the windows, I could see across the courtyard to Ballroom A. White flowers everywhere, golden ribbons, the elegant chaos of last-minute wedding preparations. I saw Lauren arrive, surrounded by bridesmaids. She looked beautiful. Genuinely. Then she saw me through the window. Our eyes met across the courtyard. Her face went pale then red. She said something sharp to her maid of honor, who glanced my way. I didn't look away. I smiled, calm and polite, then returned to arranging my centerpieces. I wasn't there to fight. I was just there. And somehow that was enough. Both events started within an hour of each other. From Ballroom B, I could hear the wedding march begin, could imagine Tyler and Lauren at the altar, promising forever. My guests arrived through a different entrance, dressed in semi-formal attire, carrying wine and cards and confused but supportive energy. Erin, what's going on? Nina whispered. There's a wedding next door. I know, I said simply. My brother's wedding. The one I wasn't invited to. Understanding spread across her face. Oh, Erin. But there wasn't time for sympathy because my event was starting, and it was beautiful. We ate good food and shared stories. Dr. Simmons gave a toast about resilience. Marcus made everyone laugh with teaching stories. Mrs. Kowalski held my hand and told me I was brave. Music drifted between the ballrooms. Theirs formal and stiff, mine warm and genuine. Some guests wandered outside and ended up at the wrong event by accident, realizing too late which celebration they'd stumbled into. I heard later that several people preferred my dinner, stayed longer, laughed more freely. Tyler had the bigger party, but I had the real one. Halfway through the night, disaster struck next door. I heard it before I understood what was happening. Raised voices, the clatter of something breaking. My catering manager rushed in looking flustered. Miss Hall, I'm so sorry, there's been a mix-up. The bakery delivered your dessert to the wedding reception by mistake. My custom cake, with my initials engraved in the frosting, sitting on Tyler's dessert table. I should have felt embarrassed. Instead, I felt something close to satisfaction. It's fine, I told her. Mistakes happen. But it wasn't fine for Lauren. Through the walls, I heard her voice rising, sharp and furious. How could you mess this up? This is supposed to be perfect. The shouting got louder. Tyler's voice now, trying to calm her. Someone crying. The elegant facade of their perfect wedding was cracking, and all it took was one wrong cake. My guests exchanged glances. Some looked uncomfortable. Others, knowing the full story, smiled grimly. Should we do something? Nina asked. No, I said quietly. They'll figure it out. Because that was the thing about carefully constructed perfection. One small mistake and the whole thing falls apart. I didn't see the full collapse until later, Heard about it through whispered texts and second-hand accounts. Lauren had a complete breakdown over the cake mix-up, screaming at the staff, at Tyler, at anyone nearby. She'd been so focused on perfection, on image, on making sure everything looked flawless, that one mistake shattered everything. Tyler tried to calm her, but she turned on him. Your sister did this on purpose. She's trying to ruin everything. Erin's just next door having dinner, he said, exhausted. She's not ruining anything. She exists, Tyler. On our day. She exists and everyone knows it. And that, I heard later, was when several guests left. Quietly, uncomfortably, realizing they were watching something ugly unfold. The wedding didn't end, but it changed. The joy leaked out of it like air from a balloon. Meanwhile, in Ballroom B, we were dancing to old songs and telling stories and being genuinely, messily, imperfectly happy. No Instagram perfect photos. No performance. Just people who cared about each other, celebrating that simple fact. At 10 o'clock, Marcus raised his glass. To Erin, who taught us that family is something you build, not something you're born into. Everyone cheered. And I cried, but they were good tears this time. After midnight, when most guests had left and I was helping clean up, Tyler found me in the garden. He looked wrecked, tie undone hair messy, eyes red. Erin. I turned, holding a box of leftover decorations. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Your event was really nice, he said quietly. I could hear the laughter. I didn't respond. He stepped closer. We were wrong. I was wrong. I don't even know why we. Yes, you do, I interrupted. Lauren didn't like me. I made her uncomfortable. And it was easier to erase me than deal with that discomfort. That's not fair. Isn't it? I set down the box. Tyler, you chose your fiancé over your sister. That's your right. But don't pretend you don't know why you did it. You wanted an easy wedding more than you wanted me there. Tears filled his eyes. I'm sorry. I know. And I did. But sorry doesn't undo the hurt. Sorry doesn't make me invisible less visible. Maybe someday we can fix this, he said. I thought about that. Maybe. But not today. Not because I'm angry, but because I need to protect the peace I've built. Your wedding taught me that I've been making myself smaller for people who don't appreciate it. I'm done with that. A year later, I drove past Maplewood again. This time, I was going there for a charity event I'd organized with Dr. Simmons, a fundraiser for teacher supplies in underfunded schools. My car was full of donation boxes. My phone was full of texts from friends who'd become family. I pulled into the parking lot and sat for a moment, looking at the venue where everything had changed. The wedding fallout had been messy. Tyler and Lauren's marriage struggled from the start, built on performance instead of foundation. Mom and Dad reached out occasionally, awkward apologies that didn't quite land. Emma and I talked more, carefully rebuilding. But the family I'd been born into felt distant now, like a photograph fading with time. The family I'd chosen, Nina, Marcus, Dr. Simmons, Mrs. Kowalski, and others who'd shown up that night, they were vivid and present and real. I got out of the car, grabbed the donation boxes, and walked toward the entrance. My emerald dress was packed away in my closet now, saved for another occasion. But I didn't need it anymore. I'd learned what it taught me. That visibility isn't something you beg for. It's something you claim. I didn't get revenge on my family. I just stopped chasing people who couldn't see me. And somehow, watching them scramble to keep up while I built something real that hurt them more than any dramatic confrontation ever could. The story doesn't end in fury. It ends in freedom. And that, I've learned, is the best revenge of all.